Welcome to How I Rent It, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on the tent rental industry. I'm Tony Ehrbar, the owner of American Tent, one of the leading event tent manufacturers in the U.S. As someone who got started in the event rental industry over 10 years ago, I'm excited to bring you the stories behind the people who keep events running smoothly. Was watching an episode of Shark Tank one night, had a couple of beers, and went on Craigslist, and in Green Bay was a tent rental business.
At the end of the day, failure was not an option. I'm going to do this.
Is this your first time on a podcast?
It is my first time on one, listening to one, seeing one. Yes, sir.
Each episode, we'll talk to inspiring event rental business owners to learn how they got started, the challenges they've faced, and their secrets to success. Whether you're dreaming of starting your own rental business or just love hearing great entrepreneurial stories with plenty of in-tent puns thrown in, this podcast is for you. Stephen has been through the rental industry for over 15 years.
And I was born under a tent.
This is the part where we're going to get into where we're going to have like VP of HR come in and just like okay the questions and answers. What does Ricky Bobby say? If you ain't first, you're last.
That's it. Absolutely.
So grab your coffee, your notebook, or just sit back and relax with a box of popcorn. Subscribe now on Spotify, Apple, or Google Podcasts, and join me as we uncover the journey behind the tent rental industry and how I rent it. Welcome back to How I Rent It, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the tent rental industry, where we share valuable insights, success stories, and lessons from entrepreneurs who built their rental business from the ground up. I'm your host, Tony Ehrbar, the owner and CEO of American Tent. And today, I'm excited to welcome our next guest, Matt Mutton, president of Mutton Party and Tent Rentals in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Matt grew up in the business and has helped expand his family's company into one of the largest and most trusted event rental providers in the Midwest. Today, we'll talk about his journey, how he's grown the business while staying true to its family roots, and what he sees next for the industry. If you're looking for real stories about growth, quality, and service done right, you're in the right place. So let's dive in. Matt, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing all right. Happy Monday.
Yeah. Short week.
Yeah. Do you guys have a lot of stuff coming up for the 4th of July here?
Not a real intense week for us as far as 4th of July specific, but we're out banging tent stakes in the ground, doing county fairs and getting ready for a big air show. So just another year. So
yeah. Fireworks will be interesting this year because most of the prices have gone up so much because all that's come out of China. So I went out to try to buy fireworks this week and didn't get as much as I've got in the past.
Yeah.
Great. So tell us a little bit about you and then the business, how the business got started, locations, number of employees, all that kind of background information.
Yeah. Well, as you said, we're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is Northeast Indiana. We have about 40 employees in season, flex up to about 45 here in the next month. And then we drop down to around 30, 35 in the off season. So I've been in the business my entire life. A school bus actually dropped me off at our warehouse when I was in elementary school. So I was kind of stuck, I guess would be one way to describe it. But as far as history goes, so my dad actually started the business with his brother and father. My dad was a mechanic, fixed lawnmowers, things like that. So they went out and bought a John Deere franchise after high school. And as people brought in things for repair, they go, well, hey, can we rent a mower? Can we do this, that, whatever? So they started renting equipment. And as you get a reputation for rental, people say, well, do you have tables? Do you have chairs? And my dad saw an opportunity to expand into the party rental stuff, even back in the late 70s, early 80s. As family business goes, my dad, his brother, their father, at some point determined maybe they shouldn't all be in business anymore together. So they split. We went strictly rental at that point. That was 1985. At that point, we were probably 90% tool rental, some party rental. Party rental continued to grow. Late 90s is when a lot of those roll-ups happened with the nation's rents, et cetera. My dad determined that maybe competing on the equipment side wasn't where he wanted to be, auctioned everything off, and have been strictly party and tent rental since 1999. So I graduated college in 2008. I'd obviously worked there in high school all the summers, college all the summers. Went to college, thought that, I was going to do corporate America, something more exciting than the rental business. But after about 3 years of courses, I realized I couldn't stand to focus only on accounting or only on marketing. I needed the variety, fit my personality well. And my parents tried to talk me out of buying the business for about a decade, but I was too dumb to listen. And here we are. So.
Okay. And was it right after you got back from college that you bought it out, or did you come back in a operations role and kind of worked your way in?
Yeah, no, I was operations and sales. We did a buyout in 2015. So January 2016 is when we signed those papers. So I've been in the business for about 8 years out of college before we formalized that process.
Is your dad still involved in the business? Just when he wants to, comes on to shows?
Yeah, no, he's not really. He's a big real estate guy, so he's out piddling around with that. I mean, he's in our warehouse once a week doing things like that, but no day-to-day activity. It's been a few
Yeah.
occasions where I was in over my head, and I've called and I said, "Hey, I really could use some assistance with this." So super supportive, but
Yeah.
no daily role.
Got it. So you took the business over or started in the business in 2008 and then 2016 took it over. Tell me about your first event on your own, owning the business and how it went.
Yeah. I'll be honest, it's all kind of a blur. Honestly, when I bought the business and that was finalized, I was a small percentage owner leading up to that. In some ways, it was kind of a relief, which seems funny. There was just a lot of, I think anybody that, has worked for somebody, there's a whole nother layer of pressure, to your management, your owner, whatever that might be. So to feel like the buck stopped with me had some peace of mind for me. I think I actually started working less, which maybe isn't a good memo to anybody, but yeah. So I don't have anything real earth shattering. I mean, there's definitely been some moments where I broke down in my car and cried because we're not going to get this all done. But here we are. We're still alive. So.
Was working less a result of now you were working on the business and you knew you had a team you could trust to be focused on those items? What do you think contributed to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was I could be a little bit more selective with what we were doing. We came from general rental. I mean, so anything and everything we rented. Cotton candy machines. We had pedal go-karts. We had bounce houses. We had massive tents. And we had all this different stuff. So I shouldn't say quickly, but really over the course of my entire career since I bought my parents out, started kind of eliminating things that were headaches. And I think that opens up some bandwidth to focus on other things. I mean, my rule is if it makes my phone ring more than twice in a year on a weekend, we just quit renting. So
yeah,
that's been my motto. So.
Okay. So if it was a pain in the ass, or you probably went and looked and said, hey, we don't even rent these cotton candy machines, or my guys are spending an hour trying to get all the sticky stuff out of it or whatever.
Yeah. It's all been gradual. I mean, we stair stepped out of things. Ice cream machines were a pain in the butt because people didn't have enough power. You only want to deal with that for so long and troubleshooting somebody's birthday party problems. And you're just like, you know what?
Yeah.
This isn't worth the $10,000 a year we're doing in ice cream machines. Not that it wasn't profitable. It just was.
Right. Did changing your inventory then change your focus to what types of events you were doing?
So I'm a tent geek. I grew up on a tent crew. I mean, my earliest memories are dragging a sledgehammer around that I literally couldn't pick up, or my dad sending me out on crews with guys, and I'm sure they're picking on me. They're like, oh yeah, go run that whacker. And I mean, I couldn't even get the thing off the ground. So I always wanted to put up the biggest, coolest tents. That's always been my goal. So, right out of the gate, when I decided I was going to come into the business, it was always tent growth focused. And that's pretty much where I lived at for probably 7-8 years. And then as, we started to slim back some of the other stuff, we had some opportunities open up in our immediate market with some transfer of ownership and different management and some of our competitors. So we really went after tabletop a lot more aggressively, which goes hands in hand. And, frankly, the tabletop's a lot easier. So maybe if I was smarter, I would have went after that a little harder than the tinning out of the gate. So, and as far as client types, corporate's always been, corporate nonprofit's always been about 65% of our revenue. And that has continued to grow. I haven't ran that number in a while. Maybe I should get more organized, but It's a lot easier for us anyways. I mean, I find homeowners, it's great. It's cool to be part of the family, all those things, but those jobs are super high maintenance. And we do a lot of them, don't get me wrong. Just a lot of touch points with customers to get to that beautiful wedding. It's their money, it's stressful.
So tabletop, explain that to our listeners who are new to the industry.
Yeah. So for me, tabletops, tables, chairs, linen, china, glassware, anything that kind of surrounds that table itself. We've always been into things that move, stuff that's more high volume. So, basic folding chairs, standard tables, etc. As we had some things open up in our market, we're like, okay, at the time think 8 years ago, I owned like 75 Safaris. I think we own 3,000 now. So we saw an opportunity to capitalize on that stuff a little bit more, and we had grown enough. We had the budget, it wasn't a big stressor to do it. That's been super, super helpful for us. I mean, frankly, you can drop off a $4,000 linen and chair order in 20, 30 minutes. To do that in the tinning world is a whole different dynamic. So that's been good.
How do you transport things that are less transportable, like Charivaris aren't folding chairs, right?
So I can speak to Safari. So our method when we went into that right out of the gate was we wanted to eliminate touch points because there's a lot of handling and most people are dialing them, carrying them on their back, whatever else. So all of our stacking chairs are on wheels. They're stored on wheels. They go in the truck on wheels. So, I mean, we don't double handle any of that stuff. And we've taken that approach with a lot of the stuff that we move. How can we get it in and out of the building quicker and eliminate those touches? And I think eliminating those touches also keeps the product better, because you start carrying stuff around your back and you're jamming in the truck. I think that beats stuff up a little bit, but it does come with the cost of sometimes having to use more trucks. And that's a big growing pain for us, even it was because, so I can only put 300 Safaris on a 26-foot box truck based on the way we store them. You can put, 500-600 if you stack them in there to the ceiling, but I can load the truck in 10 minutes. So
okay. And you guys are box truck exclusively? Do you use trailers and pickups at all?
We got it all. So box trucks is kind of where we grew up, just because it keeps stuff dry. As our tinning business has grown a lot, we have four or five flatbed straight trucks, like 24 to 26 foot beds. And we love to transport tent that way. Not even just our clear span business, but big pole tents. And I think the same thing. It eliminates a lot of touch points. I mean, dollying stuff on and off trucks beats up vinyl. You keep it on the pallet, it comes off the shelf, it goes in the truck. It's quicker, and we found that keeps our inventory nicer. So we run a lot of flatbeds. They probably run 2 to 1 miles on our box trucks.
Okay.
And then we have trucks and trailers as well. I mean, we tow a lot of tin axes around. So
yeah, when we started our business, we had a couple of closed trailers and a couple of open bed trailers, and it's a big difference between the two as to how you can move things on and off. I mean, that's where a lot of the people listening will probably start, but then getting into the big box trucks in terms of transporting stuff, and like you said, the tent docks. Any other suggestions, tips on warehousing or material handling that you found have made a big difference for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I geek out on that stuff. So, we spend a lot of time thinking about how we can move stuff more efficiently, how we can store it more efficiently and safely. I think there's a lot of time lost in a warehouse if you're not organized. So one of the things we really benefited from was my dad. He ran parts and service in an outdoor power equipment business. So when he got into rental, he goes, this is really just a big parts department. Like we need to be able to find stuff. We need to be able to put it away. So we're on a bin location system throughout our facility. So if you're looking for this tent top, you go to, AA 43, aisle 7, whatever it might be. And, anybody that's been in this business for any amount of time, you've spent hours at the wrong time of day digging around trying to find something.
Or you brought a grommet end when you should have brought a lace end, all mids.
Yeah. All the time you can spend on being organized from a shipping, receiving, and warehousing standpoint, for us anyways, it pays off just exponentially because it's, like I said, it's always 7 o'clock at night when you can't find something, or it's always 3 hours out of town when you have the wrong piece. Oh, those man hours add up pretty quick compared to having, good warehouse staff that keep track of stuff.
What software do you use to manage? Do you have a separate ERP? Do you have one of the 10 specific softwares, event softwares?
So as far as rental software, we're on Point of Rental, have been for a long time, moved from a DOS system way back when. So it's been good, does its job. We are on board to move to Forsey, which is a new software coming out that the Able Rent guys are putting together. And we're excited about that because it's more project-based, which is kind of our bread and butter in the tinning world. We do a ton of spreadsheets. I mean, we've got Google Docs for anything and everything. And I'd love to see all that integrated into software, but I just think everybody wants to do it a little bit different. So, but that's been huge for us. I mean, that's where we keep track of our vinyl as far as, with the grade, condition, et cetera. Yes, Point of Rental can push out the bin locations and things like that, but there's a layer of information that's just super simple in a spreadsheet versus 95 clicks to get to the right screen.
And I'm assuming in Google Docs, you have a lot of kind of standard operating procedures. And I'm guessing maybe that's the same in the new software you're moving to, where you can, anything you can do to train the guys exactly how to do it, right,
Yeah.
is helpful.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we do all our job costing. We've got Excel docs for you name it. Sometimes it's overwhelming to think about, but like I said, I mean, it goes back to the same thing as the warehousing. The more organized you are, the easier this industry is, and it's not always easy. So
yeah. How do you think about job costing? We don't need the full-on spreadsheet version, but that was a hard thing when I first started in rentals, is to think about all the factors that went into it and making it profitable. Because if you're sending a 10 out and you're not making money, you shouldn't even have done the job, right?
Yeah, well, that's in theory, right? Yeah. So we, as far as job costing for us, we look at all of our annual jobs, essentially every year before we rebid them, anything that's over $5,000. And I think we do have a little bit of a miss, because sometimes those little weekend transactional stuffs that are one-off, you may be losing your tail on, but we've kind of drawn the line in the sand that some of it just has to be standardized pricing, because it's too clunky in the bidding process to look at it that close. So we're looking at that stuff close. We are looking at the cost strictly of that job. So our transportation, sub rentals, hotels, per diem, labor, trucking, etc. And then we're trying to hit a percentage there. We're not looking at all the warehouse side of it, but our percentage is reflective of where we need to be to pay for the other overhead, without getting into too many details, I guess.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, the transportation can be tough. How far afoot do you guys go?
Most of our stuff's within about 150 miles. We'll venture out a little bit further in the off season. I mean, we've made it to Providence. We've made it to Oklahoma. We've made it to Texas. We've been places, but there's so much opportunity cost in season. I mean, we just don't have enough people to have them sit on their ass for 2 days in a truck. So,
right. You're a little bit further south than us, but you do get the winter stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you can send guys out, and I'm assuming some of that's going out and helping a really big job with a friend of yours. But what other things do you do in the winter to keep the staff engaged and employed?
Yeah. So we actually bought our local trade show or decorating company. So they'd set up pipe drape booth, et cetera. We did that way back in maybe 2013. And that was strictly a purchase to maintain more staff in the winter. Their season predominantly starts in January. So that allowed us to keep more guys on staff. So we're setting out carpet and aisles, setting up booths, skirting tables at our local expo facilities. So we do a fair amount of that. We still put up a lot of tents. So we do construction, temporary warehousing, things like that. So it's not every day, but we're not shy about 10-degree weather. It's slower, but for us, we already have the sunk cost of the labor. And then we are extensive on inventory maintenance. I mean, we literally turn our warehouse into a factory. And I mean, we got guys running sewing machines and patching and cleaning 40 hours a week, all winter long. So I don't think the maintenance is cost effective if you look at it, to start a business doing it, but we get a lot more longevity out of our inventory, and we need those people on staff. I mean, we're at a size that we can't. I can remember when I was, coming out of college, we'd go down to like 3 or 4 people operationally. Like, we can't rebuild, like with the scale of job. You can't bring a guy that you hired last week and say, go figure out this $100,000 wedding. It's just not going to happen. So
Training people's tough. And then when you surge in the busy season, are we talking college and high school?
We try to stay away from college and high school. Our problem is they leave in August, and we are still very busy, and we find it difficult to rehire that late in the season, partially because we're too busy internally, partially because people are like, well, is this a seasonal job? Like, do I want to do this? So we hire. Our goal is everybody we hire is full-time year-round. By nature, they don't all make it.
Right.
We're not necessarily laying people off. They just kind of eliminate themselves, is maybe how I describe it. So,
So shifting gears a little bit from operations to sales and that kind of stuff. What does your team up in the office look like? Who's doing kind of the marketing, sales? Do you have a showroom up front? Like how are you marketing to your customers, and what does your team look like up there?
Yeah. So we have 3 full-time salespeople, and then myself. I have a fair amount of clients that I've just taken care of for a long time, and those emails and phone calls come in. We have a showroom that is set with all sorts of different table settings. So that's kind of been a divide I've seen a little bit in showrooms recently in the rental world. Some people are kind of going to a retail with stuff like on shelves, but we're still very much so, let's show them the setting, do a set change on that quarterly as far as our displays in there. As far as advertising, we try to have a solid website. I think that's, you can't live without that in this day and age. I think, for anybody starting out, I mean, the reality is the longer you do this, if you do a good job, I mean, the phones do ring. So we're a little bit spoiled on that. And we just try to do a really good job managing those leads when they come in and keeping track of the stuff that we do every year. So I think you can get busy, and through growth, you can lose a job and not even realize it for a year or two. And I mean, it could be a really good job. So I think managing the leads is huge. I think it's so easy just to, well, we sent a quote. Well, how many times do we follow up? Did they tell you they don't want it anymore? Like, just because they moved into a venue and they don't need a tent doesn't mean that they don't need linens. So, I mean, that's still a good contact. We don't do, I mean, we're not paying for clicks. We're not advertising on TV. We're not doing any magazines. We're just trying to do a good job and hoping we get referrals. So,
yeah. So how do you, when you bring a new salesperson on, or you're doing some new things on the website, talk to me about how you think about customer experience and that kind of whole realm of how you take care of a customer through the life cycle to bring them back. Nothing better than a repeat customer.
Yeah. I think something I've had to train myself on as we've scaled. Business can get so personal, specifically in busy season when you're tired and fatigued, and it's easy to be like, oh, it's the customer's fault. But I've discovered that it's almost always an error on our part when there is a customer issue, like even some minute thing. So we log any and all issues we have, and we really try to analyze that stuff and then improve our processes to minimize those miscommunications, because they aren't always like blatant, we just screwed up. It's just simple stuff that could have hedged off that customer experience. And I think the other thing is trying to put yourself in that customer's shoes is super relevant. And I think we can get frustrated because it's like, well, they're being, impatient or impractical, or, but what about me as a consumer? How would I be? And trying to get your salespeople to also see that is, I think there's a lot of value there, because I'm a pretty picky consumer on a lot of things. So I feel like if I would be happy with that answer, most people would, is big for us. So, and you got to take the highs and lows. Some customers are super high maintenance, some are super easy. That's just the balance. You can't always be chasing the dollar value of the client and say, well, this guy's super high maintenance, he's not worth it. That may be true, but his brother might be the CEO of the biggest company in town, and you taking care of him can lead to a lot of referrals. So
yeah, well, that makes sense. Let's talk a little bit around, you've been around a lot of rental people. You go to the ARA show, you're heavily involved there. So if you're thinking about someone who's starting a rental business or kind of as a younger rental business, any common mistakes you see, fatal mistakes, advice you'd give to someone starting that business?
I think that, and again, I never was the super tiny startup company. So I had that benefit. I came into a company that had, 25 years of history and all that. But I see a lot of small companies, even, I don't even know what you call a medium-sized company anymore. They don't act professional. I think even when you're tiny, doing $40,000 a year in revenue, you can still act like you're $1 million or $5 million or $10 million. Like, there's no reason that you can't have your stuff buttoned up. The customer doesn't need to know that this is your first job. I mean, that's really, I think my success has been, we just faked it till we made it. Like, somebody called and they said they wanted a clear span. I acted like I'd put up clear span for the last 20 years. Now we have a couple thousand feet of it. So I think people get hung up on the fact that they're small, maybe, or maybe they just don't think about it, but it's tricky. So I think you act bigger than you are. And I think also when you act small, that's when you get into these ridiculous negotiations with customers. Like, I hate the comment that my customers will never pay that. Like, how do you know? Like, I mean, if you just bend over for them every time they want a discount, like, you're never going to find out if they will pay it. So,
yeah. Yep. All right. So say you were going to go out and start your own rental business on the side end. What would you do? Would you start as a weekend person and kind of dip your toe in to see how it goes and keep your day job? Or are you a all-in kind of guy?
I really don't like working weekends anymore. So that's a tough answer for me. We're close.
20,
We're close
20,
on a week.
okay,
So.
22-year-old Matt is starting a tent rental business.
I'd probably side hustle it. I mean, I think there's a lot of value in having stable income, benefits, so on and so forth. As you know, I mean, even at our size, there's just so many ebbs and flows in our schedule. So I don't know that I could keep myself busy 40 hours a week.
And 22-year-old Matt would be doing everything for the business, right? You're doing all the admin, the sales. You can't afford that staff up front.
Yeah.
I remember when we first started both American Tent and Elite Tent Rentals, when we had it, I was doing everything, which I mean, as good as you scale because you understand those bits and pieces of the business, right? So you know how to help the person who's the controller think about something because you lived it at one point as you've grown the business. So you're in this new business and you got $20,000 you're able to pull together and seed yourself. What inventory are you buying with that?
Does $20,000 buy anything anymore in this business?
So I'll give you $30,000,
Yeah,
I guess,
okay.
with inflation.
You know, I'm buying probably 20 by 20 cross cable tents, 8-foot tables, black and white basic folding chairs, and probably some 5-foot rounds. I mean, at the end of the day, we move that stuff more than anything else, and I think that's just a given. So,
do you guys do frame tents and pole tents as well as the clear span stuff?
Yeah, anything and everything. We're across the board. So we've got everything from 10 by 10 West Coast to Anchor Fiesta 20-30 wides. We've got Navitrack.
Yep.
Also Anchor product, and then we've got all the above in the pole tents too. So
let's do some rapid fire rental questions. So what is one tool or piece of equipment you can't live without?
People.
Okay.
That's probably not the answer you wanted, but
I mean,
the tents don't go up by themselves. I mean, that's just the bottom line. I think it's probably sounds a little cold to say it's a tool, but it's all about the people in this business. So
yeah, how do you keep your people on the team? What kind of culture things are you guys doing to keep the good people around?
Yeah, you know, probably the best, our most success has been working on that work-life balance. I think specifically when you're smaller, and we were small, you're just grinding 7 days a week. People don't want to do that anymore. So the more shifts we've made towards that work-life balance, having most weekends off, not working 20 hours a day, has gone a long way. So the other thing I'd put out there is you got to give second chances because, you know, people you get on the install side aren't always the A team, but they can get there if you have time and you love them and you care about them. And yeah, it's a long ride. So.
And you said you have a bunch of tent docks as well?
Yeah, we've got 5 10-ocks. And so that'd probably be one thing that nobody want to get rid of. So yeah. I don't know how we did it before. It's crazy.
Yeah. And you guys invented a product for raising up clear span, right?
We did. Actually, my dad did. So my dad's, you know, like I said, he was a mechanic, all these different things. Super creative person. But the first day we bought a clear span, we rent this big telehandler. He's just like, this is stupid. Like, why are we spending $2,000 on this lift and we're not even hardly utilizing it? So that was back in like 2013. And, you know, he finally retired in 16, somewhere around there. And he showed up in my maintenance shop one day, like 3 years after he retired, and he started welding stuff together. And he comes out like 2 weeks later. He's like, hey, just start using this. And I'm like, this looks really sketchy. But it's been refined. We're selling a number of them every year, and we use it every day. It's the ClearSpan tent hoist to put that plug in there.
Okay. Do you have a website for that specifically, or would they go to your?
We do. Yeah. Yep. We do. It's tenthoist.com.
Paige will drop that in as a little thing underneath you, I'm sure, just so people have the link. All right. One small item that is in the glove box of every one of your fleet vehicles.
Hopefully the registration and insurance.
How about a small item you would use on the job?
Zip ties. There are zip ties in every crack and crevice of every truck. I think that may be the most valuable tool you can have in this industry is zip ties. So.
Yeah, every person has suggested zip ties. I mean, a good portion of the tent is held together in the fashion it is with zip ties because you got all the cords and the sidewalls that need to be attached. I think I'm going to start a zip tie business. I feel like you could make some good money in there.
I'd love if you did because our supplier changed and they keep snapping. So high quality zip ties, I'd pay an extra half a cent a piece probably for that.
Half a cent? I'm going to make a shitload of money. Most memorable event or project you've ever been a part of?
Gosh, we've had some really cool stuff. I think the one that always sticks with me is we did this construction job. It's probably been 10 years ago now. It was supposed to go up in January. We were covering up this pad so they could pour concrete. And, you know, so it's January in Ohio. it's going to be cold, right? It's going to be frozen. It doesn't matter. This is a big dirt field. Well, the 2 days before we were supposed to install, the temperature shot to 60 degrees and it started raining. So this frozen field turned into a big muddy mess. We thought it was,
Woodstock for tents.
it was crazy. And then there was like just manholes in the middle of this thing. So you'd be walking across the site and all of a sudden you'd literally be up to your waist in like just water and mud.
Yeah.
So you say it took us 5 days to do something we thought was going to take 2 days. There's only a couple guys around still from that job, but I still see from some of our old employees, they'll pop it up on like a Facebook post like, oh yeah, we earned our living that day. I mean, it was painful. I mean, it was a long install. So
yeah. Any unusual or surprising requests you've received from a client?
not really. I mean, I think customers never cease to amaze us with like silly questions like, I need the biggest tent you own. We're like, okay, how many people are you going to accommodate? And they're like 50. Like, so I think people just don't connect dots. I don't get a lot of real goofy questions anymore.
Okay. Any bizarre things you found left behind at a site?
We used to do a lot of bounce houses, and the stuff you'd find inside of bounce houses were, to me, just odd. I mean, I get like a ball or, socks, but like tablets, phones, it always just amazed me the crap that people would leave inside these things and never even circle back to get them. That's probably my biggest thing. I don't miss bounce houses. We did a lot of bounce houses at one time. So
yeah. What's the most rewarding part of running a rental business? Maybe one that people wouldn't expect.
I think there's moments throughout the year where you have just a monstrous week or a monstrous month, and that could be a number of projects or one projects. And I don't care how long I've been doing this. There's still moments where you're just like, how are we going to do this? Are we going to be able to get through it? And I think to grind through those and get to that end result, and sometimes just see these really spectacular events that, jobs that you lied about because you've never done it before, but you told the client that, we can do this, and we're like, okay, well, we pulled this off. That could be a really big high. I run into those from time to time on Fridays on my way home. I'm just like, wow, we got through it. And that gives me a lot of confidence too. I think when you do get overwhelmed, I just have to remind myself there's never been something we have not gotten through. I mean, we've never not finished the job, so as unreliable as staff and all these things can be and unpredictable as customers, history suggests that it will work out. And that gives me a lot of peace of mind sometimes. So
yeah, I hope that I know that'll continue. That's good. Any, speaking of trying new stuff, any external resources? I mean, we had Jeff Crotto on, and so we talked a lot about ARA, but are there any external resources, people, tools, other things that you find invaluable?
The people of this industry, I think, really make it worthwhile. I'm talking the other rental companies. I'm very active in ARA. I've got a BAG group, a business advisory group, which Jeff is in. I am continually, I don't know if humbled's the right word, but the things you can learn from other people in this industry are crazy. And if you get yourself into a bad spot, we had a big 20 meter up last month and it bagged water and it was a big debacle. And I called a couple people and they were ready to, ship me stuff overnight. And, if you don't make those relationships, you don't have those people to call. So I think there's nothing more important in this business, probably any business, than getting to know, because they're kind of competitors, depends on how far away they are, but there's no reason that we all have to learn the same lessons. So
got it. And then what's the biggest risk you've taken and how did it turn out?
I'd like to say having my wife come work in the business might have been the biggest risk I've taken. It's okay. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's okay. She does a great job. But I don't know. The spending money on inventory, things like that's never really made me that nervous.
And you make those decisions. Are you looking at trends? Is it at ARA or just talking to people? Where do you kind of get ideas for new inventory items?
Yeah. So we go to the show every year with the goal of introducing samples of a couple new products in our showroom. So we'll buy 10 of a new chair at every single ARA show. And that's all we own is 10. Now, we don't tell the customers that, but we put them in our showroom, we put them on our website, we put it in our literature. And, if we get demand for it, we'll go buy the, 250, 300, 500, however we think we need. Same thing with china, glassware, decor pieces. So we're mainly customer request driven. So we try to showcase some things, but rarely are we going to buy a tent that we haven't already rented it out. So, I mean,
Okay.
and I think you can advertise things that you don't own if you have good relationships with your manufacturers, like you all. If I can trust you can get me something within 4 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever your lead time is, and knowing where your manufacturers are at allows you to sell things you don't
Right.
own.
No, that makes sense. And then sub renting is nice as well for trying something new.
Yeah,
I guess it depends on who, but
sub rental's tough. I mean, we benefit a lot from it. We've got some really good friends in the industry. I think it's tough. I mean, quality is always a question. Even the best companies. I mean, nobody wants to give you their brand new stuff, so you got to be careful.
Got it. All right, we're going to finish up with some non-rental rapid fire questions. So if you could own or open another business completely unrelated to the event industry, what would it be?
I think about this a lot because I don't know why I'm in the rental business, but I always come back to service businesses like landscaping and things because I like to do that, but it'd probably be the exact same headache. So I think I'm where I'm supposed to be. Maybe if I just had like $1 billion and I can invest in stock, that's kind of cool.
Okay, got it. Darren Randall said he'd be a comedian, I believe, was his answer. He's actually doing a comedy show coming up in November or December, so we'll have to get some cameras there and see how that show turns out.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look that up.
Favorite interview question when you're got a new employee?
I always lead out with tell me about yourself. The stories you can get out of people, and then if you just don't say anything and just kind of look at them, like you can get so much intel on a person, who they are, where they came from. Sometimes I cut them off right after that, and I'm like, okay, so just a little advice: don't tell people that. We're not going to hire you. See you later. People will ramble on about some really interesting stuff.
Fair enough. So you had a theme song that played every time you entered the room. What would it be?
I don't know, probably Nelly, Hot in Here. I mean, it's got to be old school 2000s rap. So
the Brewers were playing the other night. We were watching the game and we're like, the ninth inning, Brewers were winning. How are there still so many people in the stands? Well, Nelly was the guest after the show. And I got to imagine at this point, it costs $10,000 to get Nelly to come play a show. Maybe he pays you. I don't know.
I can tell you as a fact, it is $10,000. We looked into having him for a party, but
why didn't you do it?
I just thought my neighbors might get really angry if some guy was cussing and swearing on loudspeakers in my backyard. But it's not too late. I'll be down to 5,000 in a couple of years. So
yeah, good. You're a more fit man than I am, but I assume there is some fast food option you might pick when running between a job, or used to pick when you were a younger man.
Yeah. Used to crush a lot of McDonald's double cheeseburgers. That was kind of a quick, easy. You can pull the fries. You can eat on the grill. Try not to do that too much anymore.
So what is your favorite or most gifted business book?
So I thought about that. I don't read as many business books anymore as I used to. I think the one that always sticks in my mind from college was the business book From Good to Great. And it was all about finding your hedgehog concept and not trying to be everything for everybody. And I think, looking back at my 20-year career at this point, we've done that. I don't know that I realized I was doing it at the time, but that book still sticks with me.
Yeah. Jim Collins is a fantastic author. That was one I read a long time ago. And I think you're right. Being everything to everyone is not the right way to do it. And maybe sometimes you got to fire a customer if it's not working for the job you want. So if you had a gigantic billboard along the highway in Fort Wayne or Indianapolis, that's not an advertisement for you, what message would you want to get out to millions? So what would the billboard say and why?
The first thing that pops in my head is God's Not Dead. That was a movie series. I'm a Christian. I don't know that billboard would be that effective, but doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah. I mean, anything that can make people be better to each other in a weird time in our history, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, 100%.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be? And you can't say Jeff Prado.
So I knew you were going to ask that question, but I thought about that. I pretty much flunked out of high school, so I don't even know if I know who historical figures are. But if I was going to pick somebody, it would probably be my dad's dad, my grandfather. He was kind of the patriarch that started all this stuff. And I think it was in 6th grade when he passed. So, we never had any real business conversations. I think I'd love to hear that old school World War II thought process on just business. It was a different era, so.
Yeah, for sure. Any special talents or most interesting thing about yourself? Steven Eisenstein can juggle, by the way, was his.
And ride a unicycle, if I recall right. Yeah.
He didn't do that on air.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think I am blessed and cursed with the need to be productive. So on the weekends, I'm always doing yard chores, things like that. I mean, to a fault. I think it pisses my wife off, but I don't sit still very well.
All right. So any final advice for someone who's listening to this, is on the fence, starting a business, advice you'd give them to help them out?
Yeah, hands down, fake it till you make it.
Perfect. Well, Matt, thanks for joining us. So want to start your own business? Visit americantent.com/tent rental and download our detailed guide on 7 steps to start your own tent rental business. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. For more great content, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And then if you want to be a guest, you can email Paige, email marketing@americantent.com. So thanks for listening to How I Rent It. And until next time, keep things intense.